So much quieter than yesterday's camera. Let's take a look. Good morning, welcome back. Today is Saturday and day 2 of my 3 medium format cameras in 3 days, kind of long weekend. The camera I've brought out for you today is the Fuji GA645 medium format film camera. As you just saw, yesterday if you missed it, we looked at the GA645 and today I have the older sibling, GA645 GS645. Now before you log off and think, oh, it's exactly the same camera, these cameras are quite different, so stay tuned and we'll get started. And I promise I'll make this video shorter because yesterday's video took me all day to edit and I had to delete most of the applications and files off my iPad Pro to give me enough file size capacity to be able to even edit the video. I've not had that problem before, so too long. And just quickly, if you're a regular viewer, please hit the like button to help the YouTube algorithm get this video out to more film photographers, and hopefully we can share the good word about film, and then hopefully maybe they'll start making film cameras again. So we can hope. Okay, so as mentioned, today we are looking at the GS645 camera. I bought this in July 2014 approximately, looking back on Flickr where it dates the photos. And I went after this camera in particular, searching for this specific type of camera after kind of falling in love with a 6x9 vintage film camera called it's a Soviet MOS KVA5. I've done a video on these 6x9 folding cameras in the past. I'll link it below if you're interested. After using a vintage folding camera, I was really interested to try and pick up a modern folding camera. That led me to the discovery of the Fuji or Fujica GS645 Professional. Now the Fuji GS645 was first released in 1983 and it is one of 3 versions. So like with the GA645 that had 5 versions, this is one of 3. So I'll bring a table up. There are 3 options. You can have the GA645 Professional, which is a camera I have. This is a folding camera. This is the only folding camera of the 3 cameras in this range. The GA645 Pro has the 75mm f3.4 lens, and this is a rangefinder camera. They also released the GS645W, which has the 45mm f5.6 lens, and that is not a folding camera, and also it is not a rangefinder camera. This is a scale focus camera, which basically means you have to kind of gauge the distance from your subject. Lastly, they released the GS645S. That is a rangefinder camera, the same as the Pro version, the slightly earlier version, but the difference being it's got the 60mm f4 lens, which is the same lens as on the GA645, or same focal length, same aperture. The difference being the GS range are manual focus cameras and the GS645S is a manual focus rangefinder camera but with the 60mm f4 lens. As you mentioned in the last video, 60mm gives a 35mm equivalent, 75mm gives 45 to 50mm equivalent, so this is closer to a 50mm in 35mm terms, this lens on this camera. Now if we take a look at this lens, it is the EBC Fujinon S 75mm f3.4 lens. Now this is a leaf shutter lens with a flash sync speed of 1/500. As you can probably see, this is not a modern camera design and it has bellows, so almost all the controls on the front of the camera lens itself. You have your aperture scale, like so. You have your distance, and if you look on the side you even have your ISO setting here. So almost all the controls are on the front of the lens. And top tip for beginners, if you buy this lens, I'll probably cover it again at the end of this video. When you want to close this camera, you must turn the distance scale to infinity. And then you press the 2 buttons where it says close here, which is on the front of the camera. Press and down. I'll do that again from the side so you can see. So I press the buttons here and there we are. So that is how small that camera is. and the lens is completely protected when the front of the camera is closed. Another detail to note with this lens, it has a close focus distance of 1 meter, whereas the GA645 has a close focus distance of 0.7 meters. So you can't get quite as close with a GS, but then it is a longer lens, so it kind of equals out. Now in terms of image quality, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, Fujinon lenses have great optics. Now I'll bring up some sample photos to show you. This shows you how vibrant the colours can be. This is not photoshopped in colours, this is true colours from this camera. The photos are actually shot on a Lomography 800 film, which I'd highly recommend. I've actually done a YouTube video on this film and I've done a blog post, so I'll link those below. It's well worth checking it out just because you'll see more example pictures shot with the GS645. So in terms of colours, if you pair it with the correct film, the colours can be really vibrant and really nice. The sharpness, this photo shows the sharpness wide open, shot at f3.4, and you can see the out of focus background. You can actually get some bokeh out of a 3.4 lens. I'd say the lens has good contrast, and I'd probably class it closer to a modern lens rendering look versus a vintage lens look. I would say the lens gives you a true representation of what is in front of you. Okay, if we now take a closer look at the camera itself. So this is a true rangefinder camera, where we said the Fuji GA645 was a fake rangefinder camera. This is a true rangefinder camera, meaning you have a viewfinder with a central rangefinder patch in the center. There's a small green tinted, in this particular light, green tinted rangefinder patch, and when I move the focus, the frame lines move with the focus. As we said yesterday, it means it's parallax corrected, which is amazing. It means you're not going to miss your compositions like I often do on some of my more vintage cameras. Now, if your ears are still bleeding after yesterday's video from that horrible sound of the Fuji GA645 autofocus, you'll be very pleased to know that this camera is not like that at all. Top pro tip for people that have got this camera and have never seen this function, or for people buying this camera and can't seem to do it. I found out by mistake. What you'll find with this camera is you cannot dry fire it unless you open the back door. So if you pop the back door, like so, and now wind it on. Now this isn't a joke this time. I know yesterday I was pranking around saying, you've got to listen. But this is how quiet this camera is. So much better. Obviously it's not a silent camera. You wait, I've got a camera at the end of this video that I'll give you a sneak peek. That is crazy silent. So yes, this is a much quieter camera than the GA645. As I say, it's a leaf shutter lens, meaning there's no shutter in the camera. I'll quickly pop the back for you. As you can see, the same as the GA645, there's a catch on the side of the camera. Pop that, and now we have the inside. Now, if you saw yesterday's video, it's almost identical, so I'm not going to go through it again in great detail. Same vertical format, and again you need to make sure your pressure plate says 120, and to remove the spools, again you press the red buttons. So new film, left hand side, pull it across, wind it on, close the back, wind it on till you get to the first frame, good to go. Quick video on how to load film into a Fuji GS645. You pop the side, and then if you've already shot a roll of film, move your empty spool from the left hand side to the right hand side. So I'm recording this on an iPhone, and then get your roll of black and white film, put it like so, feed it across. Okay, so the way I do it, put it in from the left, press the button at the bottom so it clips up, and on the right hand side the same, push, and then we just need to advance the film until we see the arrow here. I'll do that now. Once you've lined up the arrow in the centre, check that the button or the plate is onto the 120, not the 220, and then you're ready to go. And as you can probably see, there's not much to this camera. It's much more like the more vintage folding cameras, where all you have is the film, kind of the film back, the bit that holds the film. You have the bellows inside, and you can see the lens at the other end, and that's all there is to it. It is literally just like a light box. So as you just saw, the same as with the GA645, this has a vertical format crop. This is a 645 medium format film camera, giving you 16 photos per roll, which, as I said in the last video, for me is the perfect sweet spot between maybe shooting 6x7 and shooting 35mm. 6x45 gives you 3 times more film negative kind of real estate, so you're going to get high resolution from a camera like this than you would say a 35mm camera. The GS645 has a built-in light meter with an LED display, and on the base of the camera you can see the battery compartment. This camera takes 2 LR44 batteries, or SR44. Those are the same kind of coin batteries which you find in Leica cameras and many other cameras. Okay, how much do you think this camera weighs? More or less than the GA645? The GA645 weighed 815 grams. The GS645 weighs 820 grams. So it's very slightly heavier than the GA version, but it's still lighter than a Leica with a 50mm lens attached. Now in terms of cost, I have good news for you. Now considering I see this camera as better than the GA645, it's actually cheaper, which is amazing. I checked on eBay and you can pick up a GS645 camera the same as this one for around £550 or more, and there do seem to be more available as well. So again, the same as yesterday, because it's a Japanese camera, you'll find more of them cheaper in Japan if you import. So again, maybe look at the option to import and get a cheaper price. But yes, £550 upwards, which is considerably cheaper than the £900 price I saw for the GA645. Okay, so one question you may have is GA645 or GS645? Which would I choose? To make it quicker, let's just look at the pros of the GS645. This camera is cheaper. This camera is much quieter and a lot less annoying in that regard. It is a fully manual camera, excluding the light meter, meaning there's no possibility of electronical issues, as I experienced with one of my GA645 cameras. I'm much more comfortable buying into fully manual cameras than I am any cameras with electronics. I've been burnt in the past with the Contax 645 that developed an electronic fault. I've had a GA645 die on me. My Nikon F5 currently is dead. Again, electronic fault. So you don't get these problems with the Leica 3 camera where there's no electronics. So no electronics, plus point for me, tick. This camera, the same as the GA version, has a Fujinon lens, so I would say the lenses are on a par. Both cameras give you great lenses. For portraits, I would say the GS version is better for me personally, because it's a slightly longer lens with a slightly faster aperture, giving you greater shallow depth of field and a slightly more telephoto look, closer to a 50mm lens than say a 35mm lens with the GA version. And this camera is smaller than the GA645. Can you see that? So if we put the cameras side by side, you can see the GS645 is less tall, and back to back the GS645 is very slightly less tall. And then in terms of width, the GS645 is a more narrow camera design. So the GS645 is smaller in all dimensions, the only difference being it's 5 grams heavier. So would I recommend the Fuji GS645? It depends how you shoot. For me personally, I think this camera falls into a bit of a grey area between a portrait camera and a walkabout wider lens camera. It depends what's your go-to focal length when you're doing your photography. If you use a 50mm lens for all your photography, then I would recommend this camera to you because it is a fixed lens camera. To me, this is a walkabout camera, say a travel camera, something like that, rather than a portrait camera. Good morning from the top of a hill, somewhere in Cluj, Romania. The views are absolutely amazing. It's -2, so there's a bit of frost and stuff, but that makes it quite nice for pictures, and very nice at about 7 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, just enjoying life. Here's the Fuji GS645. It's said to have a lens which is better than a Mamiya 6 rangefinder, which are highly regarded. So if you see one of these on eBay, you may want to check them out. For my walkabout cameras, I prefer a wider lens, so I'd be potentially better off with the GS645W or the GS645S, both of which have the wider lenses. I definitely prefer the GS range over the GA range for both the noise, but mainly for the fact that they're full manual proper rangefinder cameras. As mentioned in the last video, if you prefer auto everything cameras, then look at the GA camera and not the GS. A few features I forgot to mention to you: the camera has the hot shoe the same as the GA645, meaning I can do off-camera flash and sync at 1/500th of a second. It has a shutter lock on the shutter release button itself, meaning you can't accidentally expose your shots. And on the back of the camera you can select your 120 or 220 film type. Obviously now all the film is pretty much 120. And lastly, if you want to use a screw-in cable release, you can screw directly into the shutter release button. On the basic camera you also have a tripod socket. One feature I've never noticed on this camera, and I've just noticed by accident, there is a small black cap here, which I've never seen before. If you pop that off, it's a PC sync port for flash photography. I learned something myself. Okay, so before we finish this video, a few common problems with this camera you need to be aware of. I've experienced all of them firsthand. Okay, if you're buying this camera used, the most common problems you're going to get is light leaks in the bellows. Now, when I bought this camera, the bellows had been replaced already, so this has got a new set of bellows. Light leaks basically means you get wear on the material between the lens and the back of the camera. So you get like little pinholes, light leaks in and affects your images. You can test for holes in your bellows by shining a light into the back of the camera in a dark situation and looking for holes around the outside of the material. That's the most common problem. The second most common problem I'm aware of with this camera is it has a sticking shutter in cold weather. What do I mean by that? Is when you press the shutter, it goes down, but it doesn't come back up. There's like a delay. One reason I've not got a lot of photos in this video is because I bought the camera, it developed the sticking shutter after a couple of rolls of film. It then out of action for maybe 3 to 4 years as I didn't have time to get it repaired. I then had it professionally repaired, it was all good to go. I took it to a cold country to take some pictures in Romania and the sticking shutter was back again. So if you live in a cold country, perhaps don't look at this particular camera. So as I said at the start of this video, if you can't close the camera, there could be 2 possible reasons that I can think of. I've written more detail on this on the mrleica.com blog post for this camera, and I'll link that in the description, so check that because there's a list of all the common problems. But from memory, the 2 reasons why you won't be able to close the camera is: number 1, you don't have the lens focused to infinity, meaning you need to change the distance scale. You can see physically the lens comes out for close focus, goes back in for infinity focus. It needs to be in to give you enough space to close the camera. If the lens is in and you still can't close the camera, it means you need to cock the shutter. This camera design means you need to cock the shutter before you can close the camera, which may sound strange. The good news is you can't accidentally take pictures with the camera closed, and also you have the focus lock on the top. So cock the shutter, and now I can close the camera. So those are problems which were really puzzling me when I first got this camera. Okay, now before you log off, I highly recommend staying because I just found 2 amazing cameras. But before I do, please like this video, I really appreciate it. Share this video with fellow film shooters and subscribe so not to miss the 2 cameras which I'm about to show you. Now these cameras have been lost in action for some time. I have quite a few cameras and some of them slowly disperse and I can't seem to find them. So I've not been able to do YouTube videos yet for these cameras. The good news is when searching for the GS645, I opened a box and found some amazing cameras. Are you ready? Now if this is the brother of the GA645, would you like to meet the dad? This is one of the best cameras ever made in my opinion. And I don't say that lightly because I enjoy some very nice cameras from Leica, Hasselblad and so on. This is what I should probably call the Mamiya 7 killer. This is a camera where every time I see a review on the Mamiya 7, I always comment, yes, but it's not as good as this camera. This is the understated Fuji GF670. This is a 6x6/6x7 folding medium format camera, and it has the amazing Fujinon 80mm lens. This lens beats everything. The closest thing I can think of to this lens is the Hasselblad Zeiss macro planar 120mm f4 CF lens. In terms of sharpness, camera number 1 that I found. Hit subscribe and this video will be coming in the future. GF670 Fuji. Number 2, a bit of a cult camera. I don't have the sexiest lens on it, but I'll show you anyway. Any guesses? This is another absolutely fantastic camera. The amazing Hasselblad X-Pan. Take the lens cap off and filter with the 90mm f4 lens. So this is a special camera, as you're probably aware. This is a panoramic 35mm film camera. If you've not subscribed, I'd recommend you do so if you want to see the video on this coming up in future weeks. Okay, so I found both these cameras when looking for the GS645. So it's been a good day so far today. Okay, so that's the GS645 and video 2 of 3 videos. Place your bets in the comments below what video have I got for you tomorrow. Tomorrow might be another longer video because there's a lot that can be said about this camera, and I think it's one of the most popular 645 film cameras. A big thanks if you lasted to the end of this video. I'd like to say that in this instance, you'll be glad that you did, because you got to see some of the cameras which are coming in future videos. As always, a huge thanks to my Patreons, and see you back here tomorrow, probably evening UK time, with the third 645 camera of the weekend. Have a great day, whatever you're doing, and see you tomorrow. Bye.